Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky coming to you in a nice blue shirt today. You can always reach me at the office. You could call my office, 1-800-344-2534. Every Thursday morning from 8 to 9, I'm on WCRF in Cleveland, 103.3. And Moody Radio, which is it's a Moody radio station, has an app that you can get at your app store. And you can hear me no matter where you are in the world from 8 to 9 as long as you have a little bit of connectivity. Questions to Corey@EPSF.com, all scrolling down here. And I want you to follow me on Twitter because I'm going to the Amazon in June for a mission trip, and we're going to do a live Twitter feed because I bought Starlink Roam, and I love this. I've already tried it at my house. I get almost 100 megabyte download speed and about 18 megabytes per second upload speed, and it gives you a little chart on the latency, just how long the signal's taking, milliseconds. It's really, Elon Musk is a genius. I love this guy, and this is, usually I take a satellite phone with us to the Amazon, but I decided not to do that this time because I wanted to try Starlink, and when you have a satellite phone, the way that I rent it, you are the lowest priority traffic, so it's really hard to get a signal out of there. And I don't like that. I want to be high priority. I think we're high priority. So I'm going with Starlink. I'm going to have internet in the jungle. I'm going to do something Facebook Live, but I'm also going to do it on Twitter. And that's at SkiBucks and the number 1, also scrolling down here. So follow me on Twitter so that you can be part of that. I want to, next week, May 2nd and 3rd, there's a Fed meeting. The Federal Reserve is going to meet, and on Wednesday, the 3rd, they're going to raise interest rates 25 basis points. It's coming your way. It's coming my way. One of the things that really hasn't been happening is ever since the banking crisis started with Silicon Valley Bank, otherwise known as SVB, rates got a little depressed. They came down. So what I'd like to see is rates kind of lift up a little bit. It's not great for the banks, I'm going to admit that, but it's great for our industry, and it's great for your portfolios because it brings the bond market back into play. Also in June, on the 14th, the Fed is also going to raise rates another 25 basis points. So that's 50 more basis points. Now, after that, I think we're going to be extremely data dependent. And why are they still raising rates? Why is this still going on? Why haven't they gotten the message? Well, I'm going to tell you why. We've got 5% plus inflation. So inflation is over 5% still. The Fed is not going to stop until inflation is coming down through that threshold and continuing on. This morning we got a CPI report where prices went higher. So it's going in the wrong direction. It's not, they can't stop. So no matter what you hear from the talking heads on Wall Street, there's no Fed pivot coming. They're raising rates this next month and in June. And then we have a 3.75% unemployment rate. The Fed traditionally would call 5% unemployment full employment. Like at 5% unemployment, there's nobody else that you could hire. Well, we know that's not true now for a lot of reasons, productivity reasons, technology. You don't necessarily have to go to the office to work anymore. It's been like that since before the pandemic, but especially after the pandemic. So you don't necessarily have to have transportation. You could work in Chicago but live in Poughkeepsie. So that is kind of a unique thing, and I think that's one of the things that's keeping the unemployment rate depressed. But the Fed wants to see that unemployment rate probably north of or higher than 4.25%, and I think that's coming. We also have rising rent and house prices. So if you look at east of Texas, but including Austin, prices are rising. Cleveland, up 5% on rent, up 7% on house prices year over year. Miami is in double digits. If you look at west of Texas, excluding Austin, prices are falling. So that's going to sweep across the country eventually. It's just not right now. It's not happening right now. Prices are still rising here. And those numbers for the Fed are untenable. They cannot continue. So why is this happening? Why is inflation still high? We've had the fastest Fed rate hikes in history. The Fed's been around since 1913, never raised rates this fast. Why hasn't it taken hold? One, it takes a while for this to filter through the entire economy, and we're just not there yet. And secondly, well, let me tell you what inflation is first. Inflation is just too much money chasing too few goods. So we have these rising prices, and what is causing the inflation right now? One of the things is one of the things contributing to inflation is the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. It actually pumped billions of dollars into the economy, and it's just a fake name. The Inflation Reduction Act actually increased inflation because it's the new Green Deal. It's subsidies, it's battery subsidies, it's electric car tax credits. It's funneling money back into the economy. And when they look at the amount that the tax credits are going to cost, it's actually 3 times more expensive than what the bill originally sought out to do. So it's 3 times more inflation creating than what we originally thought. It's way worse than what we thought. When Joe Biden was running, a lot of people would say, well, he's the moderate guy. And they branded Trump a right-wing extremist. They called him a Nazi and all a fascist and all these things. Well, the Biden administration is not the moderate. They are the left-wing wackadoodles that are costing our economy right now. Now, to be fair, they didn't create all the debt since 2020. And during COVID, we racked up about $3 trillion of debt before Joe Biden even took office. And then the Biden administration did another COVID relief bill, which added to debt. And then they did these other big bills like the Build Back Better, which added a lot of debt. And no matter what anybody says, spending more money does not save you money in the long run. It costs you money because the Fed is borrowing money to do this. They have to pay interest on the debt, and interest rates are going up. So it's going to be harder and harder to finance the debt and not have it take all of our money. So the Inflation Reduction Act pumped billions of dollars of money into the economy. Too much money chasing too few goods. The Build Back Better plan did the exact same thing. Now, does it make sense to build a bridge where there was none? Yeah, it could if it leads to economic development. Those things can make sense. But the bill itself is going to cost us money. So I understand the idea of creating new infrastructure and improving old infrastructure to be able to absorb more traffic. And those are good things. Those are economic engines. They generate tax revenue because businesses can then build there if there was no road or bridge there before. But the way they did it is probably a little bit reckless, and it's going to cost us money in the long run. And I'm telling you this, the Fed is not going to lose this battle. The banking crisis did help them out a little bit because it depressed rates and slowed down credit. But those things are starting to return to normal again. And it didn't help the Fed enough. And so the Fed is going to win this battle. And I don't think that they're going to go north of 6% on the Fed funds rate, but they might be right at 6% when it's all said and done and wait. And they may wait a month and look at numbers. They may wait 2 months and look at numbers. And if the numbers don't come down, they're going back to their playbook, which is to raise interest rates. So rates are going up. I'm not 100% against it because it brings the bond market back and allows us to do some things that we hadn't been able to do for a long time. I want to answer one listener question, and you guys keep coming through and sending in questions to Corey, so thank you for that. The question is a simple one. How do I budget? You would be surprised at how often I get this question. And I love the question because it shows me that people want to do better. And so how do you budget? And it's never too late, by the way. No matter how you've run your finances up until right now, you could do a better job if you want to. So the first thing we're going to do, because the income side is fairly easy, we could see what's getting deposited into your checking account or the checks that you're putting in. So that's the easy part. The hard part is your expenses. We need to track your expenses for at least a month. So May's right around the corner. You could start right now. Just write down what you spend money on. All the things that you know about, the easy things like your mortgage or your rent, gas, utilities, gas for your car, things like that, food. There's a better way, though. If you get something, an app like Mint, for instance, you could track it as it's happening. So everybody except for my friend at church, Gary, has a smartphone. Gary had a smartphone, and he detransitioned, I guess, back to a dumb phone because he couldn't take all the bells and whistles. But you could download Mint. Now, there's a free version to Mint. There's a paid version. You don't need the paid version. Get the free version, and you put your expenses in there. Like you go to the grocery store, you spend $100, put it in your Mint app. And I think you can even read your receipts. So you do that, and it'll put it in a category for you. And then at the end of May, you're going to look at it and say, okay, here's how much I spent on food as a percentage of my expenses. And so now we've taken the first step, and it's the hardest step because you got to do something to make it happen. And then now that we have this information, we could say, wow, I didn't realize I spent that much money eating out, which is a very common thing for people to say once they track their expenses. Or, wow, I didn't realize. Now, I want you to know that no matter how much you spend on golf, it's the perfect number. So if it's 1,000 or 5,000, it's perfect. So you don't need to change that, but everything else probably needs to change. Like your wife's frivolous spending, that's got to change, but yours is fine, especially if it's golf. But you have this information now. Now we can work with it and say, okay, here are the things that I want to manage closer. Another big thing is when people put in their credit card payment and the interest that they paid on it, and they look at that thing over the course of the year, they say, wow, I don't want to pay interest on a credit card anymore. Look at how much I paid. And so they start managing their credit card better. And the only way to manage a credit card is every month you pay the balance off. Every single month. And the first month you can't, you stop using that credit card until the balance is paid off. And then you get in the habit of paying it off every month. It'll help you be responsible, and it'll save you tons of dough, I'm telling you. But having a budget is really step number one. It's the first financial pillar that we're going to have, because now we could say, okay, here's how much I need to live. So here's what my emergency fund would be. It's everything kind of builds off of this budget. And so it's important. I want you to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So don't get bogged down in perfection. Just do it, even if it's not totally right. We can work with that. And when you sit down with somebody in the financial industry and their experience, they can kind of walk you through it. So have a budget. You got to have a budget. Thank you for the question. I am David Safransky, a real American, a true red-blooded patriot, and the voice you can trust.